my name is Ante, and today I'm going to show you how Unstructured2Graph works with Memgraph. So I will guide you through these 6 steps in order to start Unstructured2Graph and see how things can operate. The first thing is to sign up and create a cloud project or run a local Memgraph. So depending on what you want to do, you will either go to your cloud.memgraph.com and you would open a project like this and pick an instance size and pick an actual version of Memgraph, which is in this case 3.7.1, and then you would get some information on how to connect to actual Memgraph instance here for the client, for the console, or for the driver. So that would be if you started the Memgraph as a cloud project, or you can kind of locally run a docker run command and run a local Memgraph instance. So I already have a Memgraph instance running. It is here and it's operational on the port for Memgraph. So I kind of solved the step 1. Now the second thing is get and install all dependencies via UV. UV is a package manager. So what I did, I run UV init dot, which essentially created a project in a local directory called Unstructured2Graph demo with the basic version. After that, I added add Unstructured2Graph dependency, which is needed to actually use Unstructured2Graph. So it's being released on PyPackage. You can search it on the PyPackage repository. After that is being done, I can set up the environment variables that are needed to point to Memgraph and to the OpenAI key that we need. So in this file, I have added URL to the Memgraph. I'm currently using a local instance. So in the case of cloud, you would replace this with the information from here. So it would be this endpoint, this port, then your username, and your password would go there. And obviously an OpenAI key that we need for entity-based LLM extraction. So I have created that in the env file. Now after that, I can start ingesting the documents and actually using the Unstructured2Graph. Basically, the best resources where you can kind of go and see how to use Unstructured2Graph is actually go to our documentation page, because as with any library, things are changing. So if you go to memgraph.com docs AI ecosystem Unstructured2Graph, here are the steps that I just described on how to actually do it. And they are the latest, most updated version of that. And here is the ingest document script that I can just copy paste directly from the documentation page to the actual local project. So this script is the copy of the one from the docs. So just briefly explaining what is happening there is, first we are connecting to the actual Memgraph, we are cleaning it, and then we are creating an index on the chunk property. So essentially, create index takes a label and property. The label is chunk, the property is hash, and we are creating an index for ingestion. Then we are using a LightRAG. So if you dive into how Unstructured2Graph works, we are basically using 2 components. One is LightRAG and the other one is unstructured, that helps us chunk all the documents. After that, you can define your source documents, which point to the actual source files that you want to ingest. So in this case, I have a small sample.txt file that describes some text. And then after that, we call from unstructured, which actually parses the sources and Memgraph. And we got the LightRAG wrapper that is doing the processing in terms of a graph. Then we are calling it or awaiting it. And after that, we are creating an embeddings and creating a vector index on top. And this is all functionality from ingestion side. So if I run UV run ingest documents, what will start happening is the the Unstructured2Graph, we start reading the document that we have, start to chunk it with the unstructured, and then use the light RAG to actually process it and extract entities for it to be able to create entity graph from the docs that we have. Since we have just one document, we just process that one document now, and that is that sample txt file that I just shown. And we have successfully stored some chunks. So if I go to the lab and kind of show you how that looks like, this is currently what is in Memgraph. So we have two chunks from that text that are kind of split into two parts. And then we have like a person that is connected to it, in this case Charles Darwin. It has an entity ID and type. And we have different concepts, for example, artificial selection. And we have another person mentioned, it is Alfred Russel Wallace, who collaborated with Charles. So all of that is basically inside of this text, and we have created this knowledge graph from that small piece of text with Unstructured2Graph. Now that we have that Unstructured2Graph, which we have essentially ingested documents, I have shown you how that looks like in the lab. So the lab, the user interface here is based on the our UI for creating the visual representation of a graph. If you go to memgraph.com or just search Memgraph Lab, you will find memgraph.com docs/memgraph lab. This is the software that we are using to visualize the graph and query the graph. And yeah, we can also query it with the GraphRAG. So on our docs page, there is a step query with the GraphRAG. So if I copy paste this directly to GraphRAG query, which I essentially did previously, I would again connect to Memgraph, write a simple cipher query that will get the embedding from the prompt, do the vector search, and then match over the chunks and return some chunks outside. And then we are using ChatGPT to actually try to answer the question. So the question is very generic in this case. What are the key findings in the document? So if I run UV run GraphRAG query, so what is happening now is you're doing a vector search, and then we're passing that to ChatGPT. So the question is, what are the key findings in this document? And the key findings are that Charles Darwin is an English naturalist, geologist, biologist, etc. So these are all the facts that were extracted from that search. And yeah, this is essentially the whole process based on this data that was extracted via the Unstructured2Graph.